Hi everyone, this is Christy with CES Art Evolution Lab, and in this video I'm going to share with you how I take one of my paintings and I turn it into custom fabric. The fabric you're seeing in the video, with the help of my little demonstrator here, is all created using the painting on the left. So the method I'm going to show you will allow you to take one painting or one photograph and turn it into dozens of different prints of fabric that you can use for other projects. My goal is to use these fabrics on my paintings and also for fabric collage. I'm going to share with you my full process for that, and I'm also going to share with you some of the things that I've learned along the way. Essentially, this is a print-on-demand fabric, which will allow me to print only the amount of fabric that I need for each project that I want to complete. But first, let's start with how we are going to process our photos. This is a peek into my file organization for my photos and for my different projects. This piece was done in my sketchbook. You might remember it from a video on the channel. So here I have the original photographs and photocopies of the original line drawing sketch, so that if I want to make another version of this, I can just print it off and do it again. And then I will photograph the piece of work multiple times. In this case, it was in my sketchbook, and I photographed it on top of a piece of white canvas. You can see the white canvas right here. And I will do that before I crop it down to just isolate the photo itself. If it is a painting, I will sometimes then hang it on the wall and take a photo of it that way. Your goal is to take the photo as straight on as possible so that you get a nice flat image. You also have the option of sending your work out to a studio that specifically handles the creation of art prints. So they will photograph your work for you, and they will scan it. They can do a high quality scan, and they will preserve an image of it in such a way that you can make high quality art prints off of it. That is not something that is currently in my budget, so I am taking the photos of my work myself. Once I have a bunch of photos, I will then choose the best one and I will edit it. And then I will label it like this. I'll put that this is the OG or the original sketchbook photo. I will then crop it, and then I will resize it to the sizes that I think I will need. So here I have a high resolution version of it, and then I have a web size version of it. Because that high res print is a very big image, so putting that on my website would take a lot of storage space. So I also make a smaller web print. Another thing that is not showing here, which I am starting to do now, is that I just downloaded Glaze. It's an app to help protect your artwork from being scraped by AI. I don't know how well it's going to end up working, but I figured it was worth a shot. And so now when I am uploading anything to Instagram, I am first running the image through Glaze. So sometimes in my files, you'll see a separate image which has that Glaze title to the image. Now this piece here, it's a sticker, and you're looking at it and thinking, why does she have a black background? Well, actually it has no background. I will show you what I mean by that in a moment. Some photos or pieces of artwork I look at and I want to isolate parts of them to create art stickers. And those stickers will be used as part of making the fabric. Or I can also literally make stickers. Some of the print-on-demand companies or art print companies also offer creative art stickers as an option. So when I am editing, I take all of this in mind, and I want to keep it all organized together. But I always want to keep that original sketch. Here I'm showing you the original and the sticker. So on the left, it's sort of like a picture in a picture. The original piece here, and you might recognize it from a recent video where I messed up with the resin. The original piece was done on brown palette paper. I decided that I wanted to isolate the image to use for an art sticker. So on the right, you're seeing the image inside Photoshop, and it's actually Photoshop Elements. I have just taken away the background. Just a side note, Photoshop Elements is a lot less expensive than the full Photoshop program. So unless you need all of the features of the full Photoshop, you can buy Elements, and it's usually on sale multiple times a year. And honestly, that meets most of my photo editing needs at the moment. So there are a couple of ways that you can put your designs into a block or tile that can then be used to make fabric. What you're seeing here is, again, that sticker. So you see that this little area here, the checkerboard, represents that there is no background to the layer for this. And I can take this and put it on a blank sheet. So let's place her real quick. And then I can size this image and manipulate it in different ways. Let's duplicate the layer and then just keep moving it around. And I can resize it. I can put it at a tilt. I can do all kinds of things, layer stickers over stickers. I could use multiple images. So when I'm calling it a sticker, I'm literally using it over something else in the same way you would use a physical sticker. And I'm just like sticking it or stamping it in different areas to create a design. In a moment, I'm going to show you the Repr app. It is a image app which can make this process a little faster and easier, and can also sample parts of the image to create interesting patterns and designs. And it works a little faster and saves me some time. The other thing that I do is I keep templates. So whatever photo editing software you're in, you'll want to start making templates for any patterns that you want to create regularly. When I think about fabric or even scrapbook paper, and this is sort of where I'm taking it from my time as a scrapbooker, there are certain patterns that would be in a collection. You have like a hero image, which is usually something organic, maybe flowers, or say it's like cats, or some kind of interesting geometric design, something that's large and more of the centerpiece of the collection. And then you have supporting patterns and designs. You might have, this will make like a diamond lattice shape. This one's a little more obvious. You have these thin stripes. This one is like a thick, large stripe with thin stripes on the side. So you can start making templates in your photo editing software where you can then very easily just make some of those supporting patterns. And there's a couple that I still haven't made yet, like I want to make one with polka dots. So what I can do now is then I can sample a color from this, and then I can very easily just come in here and change that background color. And then I have supporting fabric to go with that main hero image fabric that I'm creating. That will enable me to easily create custom collage pieces that I want to use for larger projects. So think about if there are patterns that you're going to repeat and use again and again. And if that is the case, make some templates for those particular patterns. Okay, so here I am inside the Repr app with an example of how I use the PNG to make the sticker. And I just want to pause for a moment with a little disclaimer. I am not affiliated with Photoshop or with the Repr app company. These are simply tools that I am currently using, and I am sharing my current process. You can use any photo editing tools at your disposal, and there are a variety of free and paid programs available out there. There are also other apps that you can play around with. Again, this is just simply what I am currently using in my process. Excuse me. So, looking at this, we can see that this image here is the PNG sticker. The checkerboard pattern behind shows that there is no background there, and it appeared in my files, if you recall, as having a black background, but there is indeed no background there. What the Repr app does, and again, you can do this in a photo editing program, you can place the sticker any way that you want. It's like having a sticker book or a sheet of stickers. You're just stamping it wherever you want. The Repr app just speeds up the process for me. And if I look at the different seamed patterns, you can see as I go through the different patterns that I can create different variations. It will mirror the image for me automatically, and it just saves me a lot of time from having to do this manually. Plus, admittedly, it's very fun to play with. Now, when you are doing the sticker app, and you are going to want to do it in certain patterns, like for example, the half brick, you're going to get different responses from the program based on the aspect ratio. So this particular program, I freed up the aspect ratio and I can use any of this whole portion of the frame. With certain patterns and effects, let's go back over here, for example, and find one. You'll notice this box here that says it has a fixed aspect ratio. I can check it on or off and you'll see that the pattern changes slightly. Mostly you're noticing it here in the purple. It will be different for each pattern. One of the things that I find fun about the Repr app is that for me, it's like I'm a child playing with a kaleidoscope, and I'm using my image and I am manipulating it in different ways, and I'm creating other new interesting images from it. The one thing I am going to say about this is that if you are here looking for surface design inspiration, I am not doing this as a commercial surface designer. Most programs are going to tell you when you're looking at something for surface design that you are going to be doing this with the customer in mind. So a lot of surface designers are designing stuff for like holidays, like Christmas, Halloween, Easter, or for specific time frames like the summertime. I am not doing that sort of thing. I am manipulating my artwork. And when I am doing this, I'm looking at it with the eye of, will I use this as a background? Will I use this in some way in collage? Do I find this image interesting? And my initial pass through, I'm just going through and I'm just clicking on different things. I'm messing around with the settings. You can see how I'm changing the way that it's viewing. I'm messing with scale. And as I'm doing that, I'm thinking about, can I use this to paint on? How would I use this? Again, I'm not doing this with the mindset of this is going to be something that the vast majority of the public may want to purchase for their use. So if you are someone who is here and you want to take my process and do it commercially, you may want to also follow some surface design artists who are specifically doing that for commercial purposes. I'm just doing this for, again, for my own use and for my own fun. So anyway, going back to this process can become a little bit distracting. It's a little addictive. I end up oftentimes having to set a timer for myself so that I don't spend the entire afternoon or the day making patterns. By moving the box around and messing with the aspect ratio, I can sometimes manipulate the image in different ways and get different patterns, different placements. And just by clicking the little plus sign down here, I save a snapshot of what I am working with. I will then go back later on and decide, so let's play around with one of the image here. And this is another good one here with the fixed aspect ratio. It really changes it. And depending on, let's see, actually there's one better than this one, Bloom. You can mess around with the repetitions. You can change the way the patterns look. I do find that I end up stuck with a lot of the same pattern play. I have a consistency in what I am now creating. But once you figure this out, you can then come over and see how will it look as a fabric. So this part I'm imagining is generated for you. But by clicking on fabric, things like blanket or on the dress, I can see how the pattern would look and the sizing of it and how it would end up being printed. I can get a kind of idea of that. And if I like what I see, I can click on Tile, click to export it, and I can change the DPI setting here under Custom. There's a regular and there's a custom, and I can export it to the sizing recommended by the print-on-demand fabric company that I chose. Now, I chose Spoonflower, and their recommendation is to print the fabric at 150 DPI. So I automatically export that and have that ready to go, and then I can upload that to Spoonflower and create my custom fabric. I can do it in a matter of minutes if I don't get too distracted by what I'm doing. And I can literally come up with hundreds of different fabrics and pattern designs simply by messing around with the different placement and settings that I find here. This is another one of my favorites because, let's see. And sometimes when you click that aspect ratio, it's not going to change things a whole lot. But this pattern often will give me some very, very interesting design effects. One of the things that I will say is that this box, and you will probably notice it, let me go in there. I went in really small. You can see how blurry this looks. If it looks blurry on the screen, it's going to print blurry. And I will show you a sample of fabric later on where I ignored this and I thought it would be fine, and I ended up with a blurry image. So try to sample things on a slightly larger size or scale, and you'll be fine. You'll get a lot of detail in the images that you are going to print a fabric. Choosing a fabric company wasn't easy for me. I spent weeks deliberating about which one to go with. Ultimately, I chose Spoonflower because it made the most sense for me. And I had a lot of criteria. I was looking at how the company considered itself environmentally, what reviews people had of the fabrics, what types of fabrics and materials were available. The whole idea of print on demand is supposed to be environmentally friendly in the fact that you are only printing off the fabric or material that you need for a project versus going and having a bunch of fabric created and made and then having excess that won't sell or that you won't use. I chose Spoonflower because logistically, being that the United States is my original home country, I have a mail address there, I have friends that are there, and the Spoonflower printers were close to places where I could access and get the fabric. Some of the other places that I looked at were in the EU, and then I was going to have to pay a lot of shipping or VATs and customs fees. So it just did not make sense for me. So when you're choosing the fabric company, consider the logistics or the shipping of where it is in location to you and what it offers according to what you need. And Spoonflower had a good selection of fabrics. They made the process super easy. And they also did not require that I pay for a proof of the fabric. So you can digitally upload to a collection without having to pay for a physical proof of it. They do digital proofing. That is advantageous for people who want to sell a lot of fabric. For me, it meant that I could upload a lot of designs and get different samples and sizes of the designs that I wanted without having to pay any upfront fees or costs. And the thing is, when you're using the Surface, you do not have to put your items for sale. So you can see that I still have some items locked. Spoonflower does limit how many items you can put for sale each week. I think you can put like 50 designs for sale each week. And they're doing that so people don't upload a bunch of like AI designs or things like that. They're trying to slow people down a bit. So you don't have to put your fabric for sale. So that was another thing I liked about them. I could create something and not have to sell it. I went ahead and decided to open the shop because it is very time consuming to list all of these. And I know the designs are designed for me, but on the off chance someone might want to buy one, if I'm going to spend the time uploading it, I might as well just put it for sale. So anyway, you can see these are the fabrics that are public. They don't have a lock on them. These I have not been able to list yet because I reached my limit. The other cool thing that they do is this fill a yard. So when you fill a yard, you'll have a couple of different options. You'll see all these options here. And that was the fabric you saw in the beginning video. This allows you to proof your design. It is the least expensive way to do it. You can buy a swatch of fabric when that's about $5 US, or you can buy like a yard or 2 yards of the fabric, get a bunch of designs in it, and saves you a bunch of money. So when I started doing the fill a yard, I would look at it. Let's see, and it will allow you to select different fabrics, and depending on which one you select, you will have different fabric selections. So let's just choose this one, and I'll just show you really quick how I got my sample. So you can fill one square, or you can fill multiple squares. So when I do this, I could plan out the size of the fabric that I need for the canvas that I want to use. Or if I just want a small amount like this, I can simply select that small amount. I don't have to have a big, large amount of fabric. I can plan out a project and buy just what I need. So that's another reason I went ahead and chose them. The other thing that I like, let me go back to this, and let's edit one that isn't here. So within Spoonflower, when I upload it, I can edit the size of the design. Sorry, my phone is going off. So here in the scale and repeat, I can edit it and change the scale of the fabric up or down based on what I want. So this is also a time saver for me. You can also technically do additional designs here with half brick and basic and things like that. But having this additional ability to edit within their program was a plus for me. It was a time saver. And so there was just a lot of positives for me to choose them. I did find it very helpful to print off that quilt sampler, because some designs, it's one thing to digitally proof a thing. Sorry, I can't speak again. You can digitally proof it, but then it's another thing to physically hold the item in your hand and just see it. So being able to have an actual sample of my work, being able to look at it, helped a lot. I tried to print off patterns that I knew I was going to use soon. So the other issue that I have is I often come up with more patterns than I think I am ever going to be able to use in projects. Like I said, using the Repr app is very addictive, and I will end up with dozens and dozens of just different designs. I have to set a timer for myself, or I will just get lost spending an afternoon making patterns and designs. Anyway, here's an example right here. You can see this is the same pattern, but it's 3 different sizes. So I can control the size of the patterns. I can print off the amount of the fabric that I want and need. Again, there were just a lot of positives for me using that. So that being said, there were a couple of times when I printed fabric and it didn't come out the way that I expected. Again, if it looks blurry in the Repr app, or in Photoshop, if you're editing it there, if it looks blurry, then chances are it's going to print blurry. I just showed you the fabric and how I picked it out on the screen in Spoonflower, but I also want to show you in physical form what that sample cheater quilt looks like. So when I purchased these, this particular option here has larger squares. I don't know if you can see that with her on it. And this option here, the second version of the Build a Quilt, has smaller squares, but you can take 4 of these or more and fill in a larger section. So this piece right here is 4 squares. As I've learned more about making my own custom fabrics, I've learned that I can change the size in the Spoonflower app on their website, which is what I've done here. So this is the initial design. It's larger, and this piece, let's see if you can see, is a larger square. So this will probably be used on a canvas, and these smaller pieces will be used in fabric collage because they're not big enough to fit on a canvas. Just to give you a size reference of the sampler quilt fabric, it comes in 1 to 2 yard increments, and this particular piece of fabric is laid out on a European size king bed. So the previous piece was the 1 yard cheater quilt, and it had smaller size squares. This second size is 2 yards, and you can see that each individual square is a little bit larger. One of the things that I did learn about making my own custom fabric was that certain colors are not going to show up the way you want. So this sort of tan color here in the lines of the grid was a metallic gold on the painting, and it's showing up tan here. So metallic colors may not show up the way that you want them to. I'm hoping that you'll be able to see what I'm talking about in this particular image. This fabric was sampled from a small section in the Repr app, this little bird image here, and then I was able to create this repeating bird image, which initially looked cool to me, but I ignored the fact that it looked a little blurry in the Repr app, and the birds did not print out very crisp and clear. The yellow fabric itself is just very grainy. Now you contrast that with this bird right here. This bird was used, or I should say it was created, with a PNG sticker that I made from the painting. I isolated it and removed the background to create the PNG sticker. I can size this bird up or down however I want, and I have a crisper image. So again, if it looks blurry in the Repr app, don't print it unless you want it to be blurry. So I wanted to demonstrate to you just how crisp and clear it prints the images at different sizes. So these were images that I isolated from a painting called In the Comfort of Creatures. And I printed them off at different sizes as PNG stickers. And you can see that it's retaining a lot of that detail, even though the images are printed at different sizes. You can even see the detail here in this floral print between the smaller size of the floral print. The same goes, I isolated the grass from the painting and I created this. I just wanted to see if I could. And then I printed it off smaller. And again, we retain a lot of that detail. So this company can print very detailed images from your paintings. When you're choosing the print-on-demand company, you will want to consider the types of fabrics that they have available to you. And that is because depending upon the fabric, the way that the pigment shows up is going to look different on different fabrics. Some companies like Spoonflower will have a sample box available where you can get an idea of how those fabrics are going to appear. And this is very, very helpful because, for example, I'm not sure how well you can see it, but this cotton twill has a whiter background than the cotton canvas. The canvas is more cream and the colors appear more muted and they're not as bright. Whereas on the sateen, you get a lot brighter color, or on the chiffon. And again, oh, here's another one. Definitely a big noticeable difference between the way that the colors appear. So that is definitely something you want to consider. One of the advantages that I also found with Spoonflower, if you are a Photoshop user, is that they have a color chart that you can download for free and put into Photoshop so that you can color match with your painting. And then you can have this printed. It's about a yard, so I think it's about 19 US dollars. And this has all of the colors printed in a nice color swatch chart. And this gives you an idea of the colors from your painting. You can match them up from your photo of your painting in Photoshop to the fabric square here and get a nice idea of how those colors are going to print and look on a somewhat cream color cotton. So just a quick review, you will basically need a photograph or a photograph of your artwork to start creating your own custom fabric. You'll need some type of photo editing program or app. And then you're going to need to choose what company you want for print on demand. When you choose the company for print on demand, you'll want to consider the logistics, which means how close is it to you? How easy is it for them to ship products to you? You'll also want to consider the availability of fabrics that they have. Do they have the materials that you want? And you'll want to consider whether or not you'll have to pay for a proof or sample of your work. If you have to pay for a proof or sample, do you have to pay for every single sample or pattern of fabric that you upload versus do they have digital proofing options also available? You may also want to consider whether or not they require you to put the fabric that you designed on sale, or whether or not you can design and keep private fabric just in case it's not something that you do want to sell. Maybe you don't want to go into surface design and have your own online fabric shop. You might also want to take a look at the quantity of fabrics that they have. Like, do you have a minimum quantity purchase, or can you purchase fabrics of different sizes according to your needs? You may also want to consider how easy their software is to use. Is it something that you can do quickly when you need fabric for a project, and how quickly their turnaround time is for any of the fabrics that you get printed? So I think I've covered everything in my process. If I can think of anything else in the future, I'll add it to other videos. If you have any specific questions about the process, then let me know in the comments to the video. I now have this huge pile of fabric. It's actually taken me a few months to sort of get the hang of designing the fabrics in a way that I want to use them. And now that I have that, going forward, I'll be more readily or easily able to pick the amounts of fabric that I need to print off. But for now, I need to use up all of these samples, and I will be doing that over the coming months. We'll see how long it takes me, and I'll be sharing that in videos on the channel. And as always, I'm going to tell you that it's now your turn to go out and create something. If you decide to make something with your own custom fabrics, I'd love to see. If you want to purchase any of my fabrics, they are available on Spoonflower under the shop heading of CES Art Evolution Lab. And if you make something with one of my fabrics, I would really love if you would share it with me. Thank you all for watching.